This is Dr. Wysong. This series of videos on the big questions of life will show where each one of us is led if we dare to leave behind preconceived ideas and see where reason and evidence lead. Ends of the world. The ace in the hole for many Bible believers is prophecy. For example, one internet Bible apologist proclaims that 2,500 prophecies appear in the pages of the Bible, and about 2,000 of which are already fulfilled to the letter, no errors. And that's a quote. I was led along by this as well. It works if you confine yourself to limited information. However, in no case is there a documented example of people reading a holy book prophecy at a certain date, then taking an action based upon it, then having it come true at a later date. Even if a prophecy happens to accurately predict, that would not single a holy book out as being unique or divinely written. Quantum reality, discussed in coming chapters, permits clairvoyance, and there is substantial evidence in real time today that people not claiming to be inspired by God can make accurate predictions, or in other words, prophecies. Yes, people can, after the fact, retrodict and reverse engineer to show all sorts of proofs of prophecy. For example, the 9/11 Trade Center destruction has been shown to be predicted in Star Wars and by reading certain texts upside down, diagonally, and backwards. Consider how words and numbers can be used to show extraordinary things, whether or not they are found in a holy book. For example, 9/11 is the date of the Trade Center terrorist attack. 911 is the emergency number. 9 plus 1 plus 1 equals 11, and 9-11, September 11, is the 254th day of the year. 2 plus 5 plus 4 equals 11. After 9-11, there are 111 days left in the year. The Twin Towers look like an 11. The first flight to hit the towers was 11. There were 92 people on board. 9 plus 2 equals 11. New York is the 11th state added to the Union. New York City has 11 letters. The winning lottery number on that day was 911. But all of this was elaborated after the 9/11 attack. Such coincidences surrounding various events and written words provide fuel for endless conspiracy, prophetic, and inspirational stories. The Apollo 13 mission launched on April 11, 1970. The sum of 4, 11, and 70 equals 85, which when added together comes to 13. From pad 39, 3 times 13 is 39, at 13:13 local time, and exploded on April 13th. All elaborated after the explosion. Palindromes are interesting situations that can arise by just the way letters are arranged in words. For example, the sentence, "Madam, I'm Adam," reads exactly the same forward or backward. The same goes for a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. And Napoleon's lament, "Able was I ere I saw Elba." And the sentence, "Step on no pets." And another sentence, "Never odd or even." All of these sentences and more, elaborated in the text version of this, read both forward and backwards, which seems highly unlikely, but much could be made of it. Some Kabbalistic Jews go so far as to attach meaning to even the spacing in between words. A favorite evangelistic tactic is to prophesize the end of the world. The message is simple: believe what my religion says, or be doomed in a coming apocalypse. That message certainly caught my attention at one time. If the end was coming, I wanted me and my family on the boat. It led me through all sorts of hermeneutical exercises, cross-referencing passages all over the Bible to come up with a date certain. It also motivated me to get the message out to save others. We're vulnerable to a doomsday message because people throughout time have thought that the world revolves around them, and that they and their special generation have been singled out. It's human to think that our time is the best of times or the worst of times. Consider the words from an Assyrian tablet, 2,800 years BC, and I quote, "The earth is degenerating today. Bribery and corruption abound. Children no longer obey their parents. Every man wants to write a book, and it's evident that the end of the world is fast approaching." End quote. What I later learned was that the writers of holy books were like all other people and were dramatically influenced by the political events of their times, surrounding religious beliefs and natural disasters thought to be acts of their gods. At the very time that Christian biblical stories were being composed, Pompeii and its sister Roman city, Herculaneum, were turned to ashes by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE. A memory was embedded that echoed through centuries. It and the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE created the language and metaphors for biblical eschatology, in other words, the final prophetic events, that have inspired prophetic doom for the past 2,000 years. When Vesuvius erupted, an estimated 4,000 feet of the 8,000-foot mountain exploded into the sky and across land and sea. The sun darkened as far away as Rome, but people closer to ground zero were blinded, and when they would attempt to breathe, they inhaled volcanic cinders that were more than 1,000 degrees. The pyroclastic flow was so fast coming off the mountain and lethal that it would disintegrate a person before nerves could transmit to the brain that anything was even happening. Food and water were decimated. Disease became rampant for those who were able to survive the initial blast. The volcano's impact on life and survival lasted for centuries, creating a memory burnt into minds. The world, to the Italians, was Rome and its provinces. For Pompeii and Herculaneum, the Vesuvian cataclysm was interpreted as an act of gods to end the world. The Vesuvian end of the world and the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans in 70 AD created fearsome memories and provided fodder for religious stories. It was not enough to simply experience or observe such events. The survivors perceived deeper meaning and a cause other than blind nature. Dio Cassius, some 130 years after the eruption, wrote in his History of Rome, and I quote, "Giants, black volcanic dust clouds, appeared, now on the mountain, now in the surrounding country, and again in the cities, wandering over the earth day and night, and also flitting through the air. Day was turned into night, and light into darkness. A sound of trumpets was heard. Others believed the whole universe was being resolved into chaos and fire. It destroyed all fish and birds, believed the whole world was being turned upside down, that the sun was disappearing into the earth, and the earth was being lifted into the sky, a terrible pestilence upon them." Out of the mix of the Vesuvius disaster, the destruction of Jerusalem, and the desire for an end to Roman persecution, the apocalyptic narrative in the New Testament was created. Dia's account of the Vesuvius eruption contains language practically identical to the Bible's apocalyptic verses written at a similar time. And I quote from the Bible, "There shall not be left here one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. There should be no flesh saved. But for the elect's sake those days will be shortened. And lightning will come out of the east and shine even into the west. The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give light. And the stars shall fall from heaven. And great earthquakes and famines and pestilences and fearful sights and great signs will there be from heaven, the sea and the waves roaring, and the men's hearts filling with fear. The angel took the censer and filled it with fire and cast it to the earth, and there were voices, thunderings, lightnings, and earthquakes. Followed hail mingled with fire and blood, and a third of the trees were burned up. And the second angel sounded, and a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And a third part of the sea became blood, and a third of the creatures in the sea died. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened. And I saw the 3 horses of the apocalypse, and these 3 were the third part of the men killed by the smoke and brimstone." This is from the book of Revelation. But now, some 1,700 years later, Bible readers ignore the political, religious, volcanic, and geotectonic historical context of the writings, Antitypical modern-day end-of-the-world meaning is attached to those ancient words with author attribution given to the creator of the universe. End-time musings by apocalyptic religionists can fuel unspeakable hatred. If we become convinced that the end is imminent, that our group has been singled out as superior to all others by the authority of God and our special belief, and that our actions can hasten the end and speed us to the great rewards, such as stature in heaven or a bounty of virgins, then almost any atrocity can be justified. Millions have been butchered in holy wars, full minute, by holy book end-time prophecies. The president of Iran, Mohammed Ahmadinejad, spent millions renovating Tehran in preparation for the imminent return of the Mahdi, a 9th century figure who will supposedly emerge from a well, partner with Jesus, and violently convert the world to Islam. At the same time, Messianic Jews are trying to get the cornerstones for a new temple in place to ready for the coming of their Messiah and the end to Islam. Clyde Lott, a Mississippi preacher, is attempting to breed blemish-free red heifers, red hairs only, for export to Jerusalem. The Bible says, in Numbers 19:2-10, their sacrifice and ashes are necessary to purify the Jews to build the temple. Muslims, however, specify a yellow heifer. For many Bible believers, the end times start clicking on May 15, 1948, when the United Nations recognized Israel. So there's no time to spare in making prophecy fit world events. Every disaster, every conflict in the world gladdens a prophet of doom somewhere. End-of-the-world religious predictions fuel fear, false hope, and satisfy our it's-all-about-me obsession. They serve to keep a lot of people industriously calculating dates and watching the newspapers hoping they read more and more like the events presaging Revelation's Armageddon, or Islam's coming of the Al-Mahdi and the hour. Almost 50% of the population believes their God will bring an end to the world within the next 50 years, rewarding the believers and slaughtering the unbelievers, of course. If there is a divine plan that the Creator wants us to know, and it includes the end of the world, why would it be made a mystery? Certainly, if there is honesty, justice, and truth, which there is, all of us should have equal access. We should not be faced with the impossible task of trying to find out which modern or ancient so-called prophet among the tens of thousands has the right prediction. Holiness, purity, grace, or ethics really have nothing to do with making presumptuous predictions in the name of the Creator of the universe. Life is about getting out there and doing and being good, not attempting to discern ancient manuscripts in order to calculate end-time prophecies. Perhaps the healthiest perspective is to not worry about the end of the world today, when it's already tomorrow on the other side of the world.
Thank you for listening. Keep in mind that solving the big questions requires foundations upon which truthful answers can be built, so please work through the series sequentially. This information has taken decades of research, thought, and writing. Aside from the peace of mind the solutions have brought me, the only reward I seek is hearing that it's helped you. Feel free to contact me with any comments or questions at asifThinkingMatters.com.